One, Brown University shooter at large. Rob Reiner murdered. And what happens when Obamacare subsidies expire? What's the plan from the Republicans with Senator Markwayne Mullin? 2, Bondi Beach, Australia. Attack by 2 Islamists. As Christmas markets in Europe ramp up security and New Year's Eve festivities canceled, with Congressman August Pfluger. 3, down go the Kansas City Chiefs and down go the Dallas Cowboys. It is Will Cain Country on a Monday. Streaming live at the Will Cain Country YouTube channel. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Hope you are winding down the year. It does feel like the world has downshifted into second gear, at least when it comes to corporate America, when it comes to business. It does not feel that way when it comes to international news and the heightened risk across the world of simply celebrating Christmas. We're going to be getting into that a little bit later with Congressman August Pfluger, whose family, as it turns out, founded one of the oldest cities in Texas, founded by German immigrants. Came over, cleared out the Comanches, set up shop, and gave us what we know of today as Texas country music and Texas country barbecue. Fascinating family history. This little microcosm into a fascinating little corner of America with Congressman August Pfluger. But let's get into what was a news cycle dominated by essentially 3 stories this weekend. Stories that really exist outside of Washington, D.C., outside of policy, but soon, as the year turns to 2026, the nation's attention will turn to the midterms and the policies of President Trump and Republicans who control every branch of the legislative process in Washington, D.C. So how will they win? What will they do to not just win the midterms, but win over America? Let's get into that with story number 1. Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma joins us now on Will Cain Country. What's up, Senator?
Hey, brother. How you doing?
You ready? You ready for a rematch? Oklahoma, Alabama, first-round college football playoff. You got to feel confident, which is scary for you because really there's nothing but downside. You know, the expectation bar's been raised. I'm sitting here going, I don't know how you win, man. You know,
it's like stepping in the cage. Yeah, it's like stepping in the cage with Chuck Schumer. It's a lose-lose situation, right? I mean, if I win, I beat up an old man, and if I lose, I got beat up by an old man. So it's a lose-lose situation. And with Alabama, you know, we beat them 3 of the last 4 times we already played them. If you want to go back in history, but now to say that we're going to beat them 4 times in a row. And Oklahoma, historically, we don't play really strong bowl games. I mean, we get accepted to a lot of them. We don't always walk away with a trophy. And we've been off for 2 weeks, which is good and bad. 2, 1, you get a heel up. 2, you get out of rhythm too. The game slows down because practice isn't the same as the real game. So I don't know. I mean, I feel confident enough that I've already got the president of the university send me boxes of gifts because if we win, Katie Britt will receive something from OU for 52 straight weeks in her office. I will be sending in a gift wrap, sending her to her office where she'll have to remember that we beat them 3 times in a row. So I'm confident enough, but I'm not overconfident.
52 gifts for Senator Katie Britt of Alabama. I don't even know. 52 Oklahoma-inspired gifts. Give me a sampling. Like, what if I'm Britt, what am I receiving at my office over the first month?
Well, you're receiving a football right off the bat. You're probably going to get a mini helmet like you got on your desk that's proudly showed right there in the middle. You're going to receive probably something from wrestling because my kids wrestle there, so we're going to have a headgear or something come from there. When it gets real cold, you may get something fancy. We may even get you a jacket every now and then because Alabama doesn't deal with cold weather like we do. And then you're going to get trinkets, man. You're going to get everything from the softball team to the basketball team, baseball team. You're going to have array. You're going to have more stuff at the end of this year or next year from the University of Oklahoma than you got from the University of Alabama. And so she knows it's coming too, by the way. I've already told her what I'm doing, so it's no surprise. And so they're putting it all together. I just hope I get to use it, because otherwise I told her what I'm going to do. I'm afraid that it'll be returned. But, the winner of this gets probably, arguably, I'm not joking when I say this, the winner of this game is going to have to play probably one of the best teams we've seen, definitely this decade, and maybe in 20, 25 years. Indiana is that good. And you really got to see it. I mean, they're good on defense, they're good on offense, and you're thinking, who the heck is Indiana? Come on, man. I mean, they played basketball. Who were they 3 years ago? It was a fluff game. And now all of a sudden they're like the team. So, I mean, it'll be interesting.
I'm very well versed in political speak, so I'm going to translate for the audience exactly what's going on here. First of all, I want to thank the senator for sending this Oklahoma mini helmet to sit on the desk of Will Cain Country. But he's in a situation, as he recognizes, that there's very little upside for Oklahoma right now. If they beat Alabama, they were supposed to beat Alabama. They've already beat Alabama. If they lose to Alabama, we make fun of Oklahoma for once again, choking when it matters. But he's already setting up the prospect of playing the best team in 25 years, the Indiana Hoosiers. Like, get out of here, Senator. They're good, but don't be raising the stakes. They're not the best team in 25 years, so that when you lose to Indiana, you can claim, we got beat by a powerhouse.
Well, understand
that's political speak. This is all expectation management, Senator.
No, there's a reason why I said 25 years. Who won the national championship 25 years ago? It was OU.
25 years ago, 2000. It was Oklahoma.
Oh yeah. So I'm going back to, they were the best team. So to beat them, we'll have to beat ourselves as the best team. Yes.
I see. Yeah, I may not have gotten the interpretation exactly correct, but what was exactly happening was something other than the words that were spoken by this politician. It was deep. You have to read between the lines. By the way, not everybody is so slick. Speaking of football and tragedy and politics, and the man you invoked, Senator Schumer, what is he doing stepping up to talk about Brown University and other tragedies over the weekend, and starting with, let's just get this out of the way, go Bills? Read the room, Senator. Nobody cares about, I didn't even know you were a Bills fan. I think you're from New York City, which means you should be a Jets or a Giants fan. But what are you talking about the Bills before everything that's happened this weekend?
He is so out of touch with the American people. They call this the bubble for a reason. Well, you've spent enough time around here in Washington, D.C. It is truly its own bubble. Like, there is the country, then there's Washington, D.C. And when you're here, as long as he has been here, I mean, I talk about this, that he was giving 4 speeches on the House as a House member when I was still in high school. And when you've been here that long, you think that everything's just a news cycle. So he thinks the Brown shooting is just a news cycle. Let's move on to the Bills, and it's the insensitive nature that he has. It's not. There's no real heart. There's no real care. It is simply, to him, a day that we're going to move back to, because news cycles in politics is 24 hours. So he's putting that behind him and saying, let's go Bills, thinking that he's doing what? I don't know. And this is why he's
doing politics.
Yes. Well, but he's got low approval ratings. He knows that he's going to get beat. He's not going to win his 2028 election. He also knows that the Democrat Party is in a death spiral. He can't seem to grab hold of it. They have nobody on the bench that's following up. They have nobody for the presidential candidacy. They have nobody in leadership there, because no one knows which direction they're going to go. I mean, they're this anti-police, anti-America, really democracy at this point. And so what they go to is, they call us Nazis, yet they're the anti-Semitic group. They call President Trump someone that's trying to run the Constitution. And you go back and you see what they did the last 4 years underneath the Biden administration. They say now we own, it's our fault that the health care is so high, but yet they're the ones that passed Obamacare, but it's actually called the affordable health care, as we know is unaffordable health care. But so everything they've done, they've tried to hide from, and yet he's just out of touch with what's actually happening in America. I don't know if you saw.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw. The most qualified, possibly the most qualified presidential candidate ever, which was, I guess Kamala Harris, as she says, talked this weekend saying that you can't hide the fact that gas prices are the highest they've been in decades, that inflation's the highest they've been in decades, that grocery prices are the highest they've been in decades. And I'm going, hold on a second. Gas prices are down. Inflation is down from a high of 9.5% to 2.3%, and grocery prices are down by 20% across the board. But she's forgetting the 4 years she was in office. And you go, the derangement from the Democrats, including Chuck Schumer and their leadership, they can't find center because they can't run on anything because where their party is. It's so far to the left that they have to use nothing but distractions. So let's
set the table for a lot of conversations I want to follow up with. I just want, for anyone that thinks that maybe that this is an illustration in hypocrisy, because here you and I are starting talking about Oklahoma before we move into talking about Brown or Rob Reiner. I just want to say there's a difference between a casual conversation with a senator, which I will ask him some tough questions on, and standing up to a press conference and beginning with "Go Bills." I understand how you could sense some hypocrisy there. I'm telling you, it's a very different situation. It's a very different situation than standing up to a podium where you're going to be addressing these tragedies and starting with "Go Bills." I do believe the senator is right. This does reflect a real lack of connection and understanding of ability to read the room because of a lack of ability to actually feel what people are going through. I want to transition to some of the stuff you set the table on, Senator. I want to start with what you said about the Democrat Party, that they're in disarray, that Schumer's about to lose, that they don't know what's going on, that you pointed out the improvements in the economy from gas prices to inflation. The tax cuts in the One Big Beautiful Bill should come into effect. Most of them are maintained, but some of them will be extended, like tax on tips, to new Americans seeing more dollars. So there are some green shoots here in the economy that you would hope would translate into the way people feel. And yet, Senator, in Tennessee, in a plus 20 district outside of Nashville, a radical who hates Nashville and country music and has taken every radical position about BLM and trans issues, got within, 3 or 4 points of a Republican in that district. In Miami, a Democrat just won mayor of Miami. There's currently news out that while Texas has redistricted to, with hopes for many that there will be 5 new Republican seats, well, there's indications that President Trump's approval rating with Latinos is down something like, 15, 20 points, meaning those seats that have been redistricted to be red might not actually turn red. They might turn blue. So I'm not debating you on the facts on the economy or the disarray of the Democrat Party. But what I am here to tell you is the feeling out there doesn't seem to be trending towards great victories for Republicans in the midterms.
No, I think you're right. You're right. 2 things that Republicans are really, really bad about. One, we're bad about having a unified message, and 2, we're always talking policy instead of politics. And politics have to do with feelings, and policy people get lost on. It's just not where the American people are. And the Democrats are really good about staying on message, unified message, and they always talk about politics, and they can lie through their teeth too. I mean, we know that. We see it happening constantly. You talk, and what's happened is our base isn't excited. You look at Nashville. I think it was actually, we were supposed to go by 6 and we almost won by 9 points. So, but we should have won it by 20. You had Marsha Blackburn won the district by 20. Oh my Lord, who replaced her, I just lost his name. Anyways, he won by 20. And then the special election, we came in under 10 points. So it was a loss. So when you look at the tabs, the exit polling, and you look at the under tabs, our base isn't excited. Our base just isn't showing up. The Democrats are excited, which is why midterms are so scary, because the person who won the election, their bases had been all ginned up. They worked their tail off 2 years earlier, and now you're in the midterms, and they kind of take a deep breath and like, oh, we got this. And the part of that loss is all exciting because they've been going to practice every single day trying to beat us again, which is why, it's so hard sometimes to stay on top. Our base has to show up. Our base didn't show up in Miami. Our base didn't show up in Nashville like they needed to. And we're seeing this across the country. Our base has to be excited. So how do we get people excited about it? That's the real question. I mean, you start looking at Hispanic votes and independent votes. Independent votes, we've kind of have taken a dip in. The president made it a heavy emphasis to win the libertarian, the independent votes during the election of last year or 2 years ago. I guess it was last year. And then you start looking at what's happening right now with Hispanic votes. The Hispanic community, with the amount of illegals we're taking out here, which are illegals or criminals. If you came in this country illegally, you're a federal fugitive. It's simple. But because of the communities that we're targeting, it's a lot of Hispanic communities, and we're taking out the ones that have been here for a long time and the ones that have been here for a short time. You're still illegal. You still broke a law. We're a nation of laws. We're not a nation of laws. And what separates us from the nation you ran from and came to the United States is because you wanted to come to a first world country that believed in the rule of law. And because of the heavy enforcement of getting the illegals out of here, it's taken a hit on the Hispanic vote, which you gotta give it to the president. The president isn't worried about politics. He's worried about what is right for this country for long-term effects, but it's having some negative effects when it comes to politics. But can we play politics?
If that's the case, Senator, if that's the case, that the president is worried about getting what's done right for the country and not how it will play in midterm politics, would that not be an argument for really going pedal to the metal, like put it all the way down, whether or not it's on immigration or anything else, pursue all the policies that are on the dream wish list? And in order to do so, by the way, you're going to have to nuke the filibuster in the Senate. The argument being that if Democrats ever win back, they're going to do it anyway. So if Democrats win the House, they end the Trump agenda, essentially, for the final 2 years of his presidency. So get everything you can get done, if you're not worried about politics, in the next 9 months, nuke the filibuster, enact the agenda.
Well, the president has said that. He's talking about all the time, a nuke the filibuster. Problem is we're still playing politics. It's an argument to be made. I kind of leaned on the side of, for a little bit of going, well, should we really nuke the filibuster? Because once you do that, it is nuclear. It goes nuclear. It opens the door wide open. And I was like, why would we open the door wide open for the Democrats? But I was in a meeting with leadership just recently, in fact, last week, and I brought this point up, guys. Does anybody in this room believe that the Democrats aren't going to nuke the filibuster? And if they do, what they're going to do is they're going to go after all the courts. They're going to try to pack in the courts, not with 13, not with 11, but now they're saying 23. And you're going, okay, if we know they're going to pack the court, if we think they're going to make Washington, D.C. a state, Puerto Rico a state, maybe Guam a state, and that why wouldn't we just go ahead and do it anyways? Because we're not interested in the politics of it. We're interested in the policy of it. Why wouldn't we install good policy? The argument was then, well, but they will undo everything we did. To which I said back to him was like, okay, how do we know they'll undo everything we did? Because if it's sound policy and they do undo everything we did and it put us in havoc, then maybe it'll backfire on them. Because if we believe they're going to do it, then why don't we just go ahead and get it done and do what the president's wanting us to do to put all this policy forward? And so there was a conversation that's taking place that's saying, well, maybe we don't do all the filibusters, but we just do it when it comes to appropriations. Well, that's where the policy is made through appropriations anyways. I think that's a sound policy for us to have a serious conversation about, because we only have 3 years here. And the president is laser focused on setting a foundation for the golden age to be rushing in and set it up for whoever the next president is going to be. Is it going to be JD? Who knows? I'd say right now JD's probably the front runner. But if you set the foundation, a solid foundation for somebody to build on, because you don't have to worry about a reelection, which is the advantage that the president has, then let's go all in. And I'm in that favor where you're at right now is let's go all in. Let's get this thing done, because we're not going to get immigration policy done with bipartisan support. It's not going to happen, because the Democrats are never going to give us a win on this. We're not going to have good, sound policy when it comes to reforming the Unaffordable Health Care Act with the Democrats. They're not interested in it. I mean, we see what they've done. They want to do a clean 3-year extension on a failed policy that has a 90% fraud rate on it. That's horrible. 10% is horrible. This is 90% fraud rate on it. And yet they want to do a 3-year clean extension on the premium tax. And so we know they're not interested in it, so we need to do it by ourselves. And so my position on the filibuster has changed.
Obamacare subsidies have a 90% fraud rate?
Yeah, so the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, submitted a lot of claims in the tune of hundreds of claims. And they were fraudulent, using a fraudulent Social Security, using fraudulent addresses, using fraudulent names, fraudulent addresses, and only 10% was rejected, 90% was accepted.
So it was like a test case to see how much would get through.
Yeah, the Government Accountability Office, and so 10% of the time they got it right. 90% of the time they gave the fraudulent person or the fraudulent applicant, which in this case is the false applicant, they accepted them. And so yes, a 90% fraud
That's
rate.
Incredible.
That is incredible.
That's
when
incredible.
You start thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, this whole Minnesota story is actually, I believe what many have said, it's the tip of the iceberg when it comes to government fraud. I want to ask you about some news of the day as well. But last time you and I talked, I feel like it was in the range of passing a bill to continue the government from being to avoid the government shutdown, to bring the government back into business, to get us up and running. And as part of that, and you'll refresh my memory if this isn't exactly the right telling of it, but there was a provision put into it that allowed senators to sue the senators that were the subject of government surveillance under the Biden administration. Absolutely insane story. To sue. Now, almost nobody liked it. In the House, they stripped it out. And every time I talked to somebody, I said, well, how did this get in? Several said, well, you got to ask Senator Mullin because he would be in charge of that, of how that would work in the Senate, how that would be written into the bill. Now, setting even aside the veracity of your role in that, I don't even know if I have the exact telling of it precise, Senator, but is that true? And were you the guy that put it in, and
no,
why?
Absolutely not. It came through judicial and intel, but it was attached to the ledge branch, which I'm the chair of. I didn't know about it until it was on the floor, and I was like, "How did this get?" I went to Susan Collins, who's over appropriates. I said, "How did this get attached to it?" She said, "It's not attached to it. It's attached to the CR." And I said, "No, I've been told it's attached to ledge." I went to the leader, and the leader said, "No, it's not attached here. It's attached to CR." And I said, "Here's the language. It's attached to my bill. How did this happen?" And I'm the chair of it. So what happened is, underneath the Judicial Committee and the Intel Committee, those senators that were affected by this, like Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, Marsha Blackburn, they had asked to be able to sue on their behalf. And by the way, there's a lot of other senators involved in it, but they went with Senator Grassley and Senator Langford and said, "Hey, can this happen?" Ethics cleared it, said yes, it could happen. Which was Senator Langford, and then I guess Intel cleared it, and then Judicial cleared it. But what was the bad part of is it wasn't just a matter of being able to sue the government for illegal activity, which, I mean, I can see the argument what the administration did was completely illegal by going after their personal cell phones, getting their records, and not informing the Senate, which is a sergeant at arms is supposed to have information before another government entity, especially a separate branch of the government, can go to the legislative branch. This came out of the executive branch into the legislative branch. There's a separation of powers there that can't take place unless it's approved. So they were saying we should be able to sue. What the bad part is in this case, which by the way it is stripped out, they went back and said that they could look back and they could sue for what's already taken place for a large sum of money. Right. To which, when I found this out, I was like, guys, this is horrible. I mean, I could see where you could say we should be able to sue moving forward, but to be able to sue going back, making law to benefit ourselves is a huge, huge, huge issue. Luckily, the House went in, stripped it out, sent it to us, and then we UC'd it, and so it's out now. So they can't do it. But it was. So
you don't know. You don't know how it got attached to your bill.
Yeah, well,
It went through that process, but you don't know who wanted it.
So no one's fessed up with it. We had all these people in the room, and Leader Thune was sitting at the table, and Leader Thune finally said, "Now I've been with Leader Thune a long time, and he's the epitome of patience. I've never seen anybody with more patience than him. I mean, I've learned a lot from him, and it's the first time I've actually seen him get upset because everybody that was in that room was part of it." And I'm trying to leave everybody's name out because everybody ran from it as soon as it became political hotbed. But he said, he leaned back in his seat and he goes, "Okay, guys, fine. I will take the blame on this. But you know as good as I do, you all came to me." And so I'm assuming that's how it happened. And then the last minute, it had to get funded someplace. So someone made the call to attach it to my bill, to which we got stripped out. But it was very frustrating. Stuff like that. That's why it's so dangerous to have large bills and make changes to it at the last minute, because this happened evidently literally as the bill was headed to the floor to be voted on. And once it's released, which, the House has a 72-hour rule that you got to have 72 hours to read a bill once it's finalized. We have the same thing, but at the end of it, they have this thing called a manager's amendment. That is usually a manager's amendment is making technical corrections. And when the manager's amendment is set in, technical corrections are like spelling or reorganizing the paragraph because the lines were put in wrong, something like that. When the bill was that's called technical changes. This was part of the manager's amendment that was supposed to be a technical change, and they slid it in before anybody realized what had happened. So it could have been staff that done it, but I don't think staff would have done this by themselves. A member had to decide to do it. Leader Thune is taking blame for it, but I don't believe for a second it was Leader Thune, because I saw how upset he was when nobody in that room was taking credit for what happened.
Senator Mullin, this shooting at Brown University is an active investigation, a search for the shooter. We do know that the president, I believe the club is called the Young Republicans or the Young Conservative Club, was one of the people killed. Very few conservatives at Brown University, but she was one of the people who were killed. It's hard to know motivations when you don't even have a suspect yet. The fact that there isn't a suspect in and of itself is pretty shocking. In some ways reminds me of the search for the January 6th pipe bomber. Like, I walk around in the world assuming between my cell phone pinging towers and video cameras everywhere, you don't walk away from a crime in modern day America. And yet here we are 3 days later, and we don't know, or at least the public doesn't know, who did this at Brown.
Yeah, I believe this is the student was a 19-year-old female that was a vice president of the Young Republicans from Alabama that was there, which explains why she was a young Republican coming from Alabama, right, at Brown University. But the images we've seen, I haven't been briefed on this yet. I just got back to DC at 3:00 this morning, actually. And the images we've seen doesn't have any good footage. And you think Brown University, how do you get on the campus, get off the campus, and just have the back image of somebody? With today's security cameras set up everywhere. I mean, at my house alone, I have 64 cameras around my place. With the amount of security you have around places, especially at a university, you would think that they would have better surveillance in this. And maybe they do. Maybe they're holding it close to their best. But if you listen to the reporting that you have, that they reported immediately afterwards, you listen to what they're still reporting, the press conferences they're having, doesn't sound like they have a lot of information, or they are doing really, really, really good at holding everything close to their chest. It's frustrating to me. I do believe we'll end up catching the person. I don't think there's a way the FBI will get involved in this and start tracking every movement of this guy, knowing the direction he's moving, and slowly catch up with him. So I think we'll eventually catch the person, because we all want to know, was this politically motivated? I mean, was it just a random act that the vice president of the Republican Party was assassinated or murdered here? I don't know. And I think all those questions won't be answered until we find out who the person is. But it's devastating to me. And stuff like this should never take place. The temperature in this world is way too high. But could it just be a disgruntled student or an employee? We don't know any of these questions until we find out who the suspect was and find out what their motives was.
Well, let me follow up on the temperature. Let me get your reaction to the story of the murder of Rob Reiner and his wife. Rob Reiner, noted director and actor, 78 years old, and his wife in her late 60s were murdered. Currently, their son is being held. He's been arrested and being held on $4 million bond. Just a terrible story. Their throats slashed, killed with a knife. The reaction to this story has kind of been interesting in that there are many saying, look at the right. They don't celebrate death of political opponents, because Rob Reiner was a noted man of the left, hated President Trump, was very active and vocal in going after President Trump. And many saying, look at the right. There's not the celebration of death in the same way, for example, when something happens, when somebody murders Charlie Kirk. President Trump did post, by the way, and I think, he's getting criticized pretty much across the board for what he had to say, because he went after Rob Reiner and his attacks on the president, while also lamenting the death of Rob Reiner. But it's not something that many people think was an appropriate response from President Trump. So you see that. You see the public's reaction. What do you think about this entire story, the murder of Rob Reiner?
Well, first of all, let's address the president's response to this. I thought the president walked real close to the line, but he did it in a tasteful way. But he actually, called out what was going on. But he said it in a direct, tasteful way that the president has to say when he does stuff like this. I don't think it was distasteful. I think it was the president being the president. When you start looking at what the killing,
when you say he walked close to the line, do you mean politicizing one of these tragedies?
No, I don't think politicizing. He got right close to the line of making it political, but he didn't. He pointed out the fact of who this guy was, what derangement he was having, how much he hated the president, but yet he was still paying him respect by saying he was used to be a very talented filmmaker and comedian and actor, and he lost his way from a sickness. And so I think he said what needed to be said without crossing the line, but still paid his respects. I think that is the president being the president. When you start looking at the killings themselves, for someone to take someone's life with a gun isn't as personal. For you to take someone's life with a knife, especially your parents, to slit their throats and stab them that many times, it probably has to do with a lot of mental illness, not just anger. It's not just anger issues. It's much, much deeper than that. I don't know anything about their son. I don't know their son had an addiction issue. I will be willing to say he probably did. He was probably self-medicating for a mental illness that he's been struggling from. I'm making an assumption here. I don't know. This is just me seeing what's on TV and reading the reports. A violent act like that with a knife to someone that has been your parents, that you love or loved, is very, very, very difficult to do unless there's something going on up here that is much deeper than what we know. And so I'm assuming this guy is probably struggling with addiction and mental illness. We'll know more, maybe totally off base. But it's a very vicious way to take someone's life by a knife. It's very personal, very personal.
Yeah. It is truly a terrible story. It's always great to hang out with you, Senator. I hope I didn't miss something that's in the news cycle. Everybody's going to say to me, you should have asked Senator Mullin about this, but I always enjoy our conversation. I wish you the best of luck in football and in everything else this weekend. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
It really is a horrible story out of California with the murder of Rob Reiner and his wife. I do think the president didn't just walk close to the line. I think the president crossed the line. I think that it was, the president is, in my mind, the greatest president of the last century. I think over the last 100 years, President Trump is the best president that we have had in America and putting us on course for a real change of direction that's needed in America. That doesn't mean he walks with perfection, and I think that he crossed the line in the way he talked about the death of Rob Reiner. I don't think that even people need to be qualifying their condolences with, I didn't agree with this person. I don't understand the need in these tragedies to even add that caveat. What's the point? The point is the tragedy. The point isn't the disagreement. So even when somebody that I do not like, even when somebody I do not agree with is met with such a horrific end, I don't understand the need to say, well, I disagree with this person, but this is a real tragedy, much less go as far as the president went in this case with Rob Reiner. We'll continue to talk about this. Plus, I have the article pulled up, what the senator just mentioned. 90%, according to the GAO, 90% of Obamacare claims in this test case by the government watchdog were fake accounts that got through and approved. I'm telling you the story out of Minneapolis. The Somali community and fraud in Minnesota is the tip of the iceberg. This stuff is going on not just at the state level, but at the federal level. And as economist Peter St. Onge just said, if we actually really cared and got our arms around fraud, you could reduce or do away with the income tax. I believe he has said for 50% of Americans. Why are we okay with this? Why are we just okay with stealing from the American taxpayer? Let's talk about health care and other issues with Congressman August Pfluger when we come back on Will Cain Country. Hey, you know what I love? A real American success story, and that's exactly what Brooklyn Bedding is. It's a company with a guy named John in Arizona. No degree, just good old-fashioned hustle. And he's building mattresses by hand right here in the USA. And today, they're making some of the best mattresses that you can find. Look, I'll give you my personal take. Upgrading your sleep with Brooklyn Bedding is super easy. You pick your perfect mattress. It shows up at your door. You unbox it. Boom. Instant upgrade. Their mattresses come in different firmness levels, so you actually get what works for your body. No more sagging foam, dips, just real support. And as I mentioned, they handcraft every mattress in their Arizona factory. No middlemen, no gimmicks, just top-tier quality and honest pricing. If you sleep hot, they've got a cooling tech like Glaciotex covers or Copper Flex foam that keeps you comfortable. And they're one of the few mattress brands endorsed by the American Chiropractic Association for spinal alignment and back health. They're even 100% fiberglass free. Here's how you get the one that you want. You take their sleep quiz. It only takes like 2 minutes. And you match it with your right fit. It's also got, by the way, a 120-night comfort trial, so you can try it out and swap it or return it if you don't love it. So go to brooklynbedding.com and use my promo code, WILL, W-I-L-L, and check out for 30% off site-wide. This offer isn't available anywhere else. 30%. brooklynbedding.com, promo code W-I-L-L, WILL. Make sure you enter our show name after checkout so that they know we sent you. brooklynbedding.com, promo code WILL. Congressman August Pfluger, whose family fought the Comanches, came from Germany, helped settle Texas. When we come back on Will Cain Country. Problem isn't guns. The problem is Islamists. The problem is immigration massacre in Australia. It is Will Cain Country, streaming live at the Will Cain Country YouTube channel, the Will Cain Facebook page, the Fox News Facebook page. But follow us on Spotify or Apple, and you can always hang out with us here on Will Cain Country, as is now Congressman August Pfluger of Texas. What's up, Congressman?
Will, how are you? Good to see you.
It's good to see you. I said that your family came in, helped settle, and fought the Comanches, but that could be the case, but odds are I'm wrong. I love this history. I did not know that Pflugerville was named after your ancestors. Of course, it stands to reason because not many people are walking around with the last name Pfluger, P-F-L-U-G-E-R. It's not exactly common, and then yet here's Pflugerville, which I drive through my entire life, and I'm like, yeah, of course his family did that. But what I know, and you can tell me if this applies to your family, the Germans, which your family was one of them, came over in the mid-1800s to Texas. They were granted often plots of land, Fredericksburg, New Braunfels, areas like that. And the reason why is the same reason the Mexicans gave Texas to, European white Americans, because they wanted them to be fodder for the Comanches, because nobody could subdue the Comanches. So keep running bodies out there trying to settle it. But I do know that the Germans signed their own treaty with the Comanches. Like, when nobody else could get along with them, the Germans came over and signed their own treaty. So I don't know if your family fought the Comanches.
Well, fought may be a stretch, but we certainly settled in Pflugerville, 1848. And then, the various branches went where they would go. My branch went west, and they had to come back east for a period of time because of the Comanches, as you mentioned, before they eventually settled near Eden, Texas, and we still ranch in that area today. So I love the history of Texas. I love how many cultures were there at the same time, and it was a nation, and it had six flags actually, and now the greatest state in our United States of America.
I love the German story, though. By the way, German flag is not one of the flags that flies over Texas, but that your ancestors, the German Central Texas story, which, by the way, now is integrated into the larger Texas imagery and symbolism and culture, in that there's a reason sausage is one of the 3 things on our barbecue plate, brisket, pork ribs, sausage. It's because the Germans and all the oompa music that's in Texas country and even in Mexican music, it's coming from the Germans. But do you know this part of the history? Because I've always been fascinated by this. The Germans that came over, and it may or may not be the Pflugers, and the ones that went west, to your point, like further west, deeper into Comanche territory, like, didn't they have kind of like, I'm not going to call it communist because it actually kind of predates Karl Marx in a way, but like they built these communal living things. Like there were homesteaders and all that, but they had this like vision of living out here in the Wild West coming from Germany. And they set up this like really communal living concept amidst this wild, wild area.
Absolutely. And it was for safety. And I'm not sure that my family, had that much or had that many people as far as, a commune or a community, but they did it for safety and security and for the basic necessities. I mean, there's many books out there. James Michener, of course, historical fiction, but writes about in his book, Texas, many of these stories. Empire of the Summer Moon is another one that talks about the Comanches. It talks about the German settlers. I mean, these are just fascinating books on the history of Texas, but it shapes our culture. And it was because the Germans we didn't have a German flag here. They were escaping what was going on, Civil War and all sorts of bad things happening in Central Europe, to get here and to have freedom and to assimilate in a free society.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like it's a pointed comment, a well-earned pointed comment about where we are today. And that might be a good transition about what's happening. This thing in Australia, first of all, the incident in itself is worthy of all the emotion you can muster, how much you're appalled by it and all these things. And then comes the Australian Prime Minister. Australia already has some of the strictest gun control laws in the world. It's been hailed by Barack Obama and others, where they had the gun buyback program. They melted down something like 1 million guns. To get a gun in Australia, you have to have a license. And here they have these Islamist dudes. One of them, the younger guy, father, son, 50 and 24. The younger one seemed to have some connections to ISIS. And the story from the Prime Minister isn't one of assimilation, isn't one of immigration, isn't one of Islamism. It's one about, we're going to tighten up these gun laws.
Yeah, that it's honestly, it's tragic. You're right. It's worthy of all the emotion. It's horrible. Any anti-Semitism that we see, whether it's in our country, Australia, through Europe, or anywhere, is horrible. And we should all condemn it. We should all reject it. And it's events like these that teach us exactly that. And you're right. I mean, Australia as a country has probably the tightest gun laws of any developed nation in the world. And yet here we are again in a horrible, sorrowful event, a tragic event. You know what strikes me, Will, is that I actually flew with Australian pilots. They had exchange pilots. And I flew combat missions with Australian pilots in the Middle East against ISIS. And the reason that we did that was because we knew how horrible these terrorist groups are, in particular ISIS. And they're different than a lot of the other groups, but radical jihadist Islamic groups. And all they want to do is destroy the West, namely the United States of America, and destroy Israel. And they will go to any length possible, which is why we fought them over there, because we don't want them on our own turf. And unfortunately, after 4 years of Biden's failed border policies, and now how did these guys get radicalized inside Australia? You see that this is a threat everywhere.
Yeah, the idea of the war on terror, which you honorably participated in, and I appreciate that, was fight them over there so we don't have to fight them over here. But then what we did, and I'm going to use we sort of royally, larger with Western civilization, but I'm not exempting the United States, is we brought so many of them over here under refugee status, under, different immigration laws that evolved over time. And now you see not just this thing in Australia, but Paris has canceled It's New Year's Eve festivities at the, I can't say French words. It's one of the one word languages. I can't, Champs-Élysées, maybe, you know, the Arch de Triomphe, that where they have their big, it's like their New Year's, it's like their New York City ball. They do that in Paris. And they're like, nope. Last year they had 1 million people. They're like, no, we're not doing it this year. Why? Because of rising migrant crime in Paris. And these dudes come in from the suburbs, come into the city center, and cause trouble. Christmas markets, I read this, Congressman. That's a big thing in Europe, you know, Christmas markets. 44% rise in security costs for Christmas markets across Europe. It's like whatever the idea was of fighting them over there, it's here. And here is the broader. And by the way, again, I don't want to exempt America. To your point on the Biden policy, how concerned are you about what's here in America? When you look at Australia and what I just talked about in Europe, I know I don't know how many thousands of people on the terror watch list come into America.
Well, Will, actually, last week we had a hearing in Homeland Security, a committee that I serve on, and the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, Joe Kent, testified. I asked him that exact question, and his answer was 18,000. I mean, this is a staggering number. Not 18,000 people who got in the country, 18,000 people who matched the terror watch list. So yes, I am extremely worried about it. Our security is good, but when you don't know where 18,000 people are or what they're up to or what their ties are or what they could do next, then it's obviously a problem. And yeah, unfortunately, you know, the French, I don't know the intelligence that they're seeing to cancel those celebrations, but how sad is that? You know, whether it's in Germany or whether it's in France or anywhere in Europe, because they did have mass migration. And from the period of time from about 2012 to 2020, they let in millions and millions of people who probably were not vetted. They don't know who they are and what their purposes are, but certainly some of those have that radical jihadist mentality.
And by the way, I would add maybe even a more dangerous element to your point of not vetted, because I've got to put some trust, at least in the United States, that there's some vetting process. Is we'll just take Afghan refugees who you may have served with. I know many of my friends who are in special forces served directly with a lot of these guys, and I don't know how they feel about this. I do get texts. They're like, Will, let's talk about this deeper. But I think there's a real risk of you simply bringing people over who come from a culture that could not be more different, technologically, value-based, and so forth, to America, drop them in. It's like dropping them into a time machine, and you come back out on the other side 100 years, 150, 200 years in the future and say, hey, good luck to you. Get a job. You're now in the land of the free. And right. I mean, lack of acculturation, lack of assimilation, lack of job prospects. We saw a video of an Afghan interpreter from the spring pulled over, and he yells at the cop, you know, I should have fought with the Taliban. I can't get a job. You know, I'm not excusing his hardships. I'm just saying maybe as the government of the United States, we should consider all this. And then, by the way, the part I'm not completing the circle on this, and return to what's familiar, radical Islam. Return to that. But now in your new homeland, I mean, this is a huge problem, and it's not just vetting the potential terrorists. It's creating them or allowing them to be created on your own soil.
You're absolutely right. And, you know, people get frustrated with the lack of speed that our immigration system works with and the visa system. But I think we're kind of making the point for the system being deliberate and slow and checking people out and making sure that they can assimilate, that they want to assimilate. And you're right. I mean, you come from a country like Afghanistan where there were heroes, that Afghani nationals who worked alongside. You know, I didn't serve there personally, but many people that I know, they worked alongside them. They were there fighting terrorism. Their heart was in that. But you have to make sure that those are the right people and that they can assimilate. And there's no way that the Biden
and Congressman,
administration...
isn't it fair to say that makes them heroic Afghans? It doesn't make them suitable Americans.
That's right. You're exactly right. And there's a lot of other pieces to that puzzle. I mean, just go to to any ceremony, a citizenship ceremony, where I love talking to new citizens, and you will see the tears in their eyes because they have assimilated. But that's not necessarily the case, as you mentioned, that they can be heroic Afghans, but not necessarily right in this country.
I was just talking with Senator Markwayne Mullin, Congressman, and I didn't know this. This looks like the news cycle from about a week ago. I know you're working on what's going to happen with health care moving into 2026, that Obamacare subsidies were run through a GAO, government watchdog test, something like 100 put through, right, with fake Social Security numbers, fake addresses, fake IDs, and 90% got approved, got through. You know, this story of the abuse of government programs, which right now the focus is all in Minnesota. I mean, I know that Senator Tom Coburn used to talk about waste and fraud. You know, he used to be the senator from Oklahoma. But I think we've come to expect it's like, oh, look at these silly things we spend our money on. What about the things where it's just flat stolen from Americans?
Well, unfortunately, that story is true. And, you know, they just did a little test case. Well, let's just see what happens if we put in, you know, something that is fake and fictitious. Let's see if they'll fund it. And they did. Yes, Republicans are the only party that is willing to tackle that, willing to go to bat for the American taxpayer, Republican or Democrat. I mean, nobody wants money needlessly spent. The problem is that the Democrats are just not willing to do that. So we're having to do that hard work. And there's so many things on healthcare. I mean, I don't know how far and how deep you want to go into this topic, but yes, I am very much looking at this as the chairman of the Republican Study Committee. We have good answers. We have lots of legislation that will cut the fraud, waste, and abuse, that will add to the transparency, add to the competitiveness, and at the end of the day, it'll bring down the cost. We just haven't, as a party, been very good at communicating that, and that's where Democrats win on this emotional side. Your subsidies are going to expire. Your premiums are going up. Well, guess what? They built Obamacare. Not a single Republican voted on it. And Obamacare has led to increased premiums, increased cost in everything, and decreased care. So it's really their mess. And we're trying to dig our way out of it and communicate all the good things that we're doing.
Well, but any government entitlement, it's the story. And it's not just an American story. The answer to the problems it creates is more of the same thing. It's more subsidy, more handout. That, to your point, is what is popular politically. And by the way, I don't know the solution. You know, you asked me how far I want to go on this healthcare thing, but I'm looking, and I don't even know how much this will play, but it doesn't look good for Republicans in midterms. That's the harsh truth right now. It does not look good. How much is immigration playing a role in that? Immigration enforcement? I think that's very open to debate. How much is this going to play a role as we talk about the affordability issues? And look, Zohran Mamdani is going to be the new mayor of New York City. So these are issues. And you're right. I'm not sure you introducing market mechanisms, which will work and is the right answer, to healthcare is going to sell the way it does to say, not only are we going to extend your subsidies, we're going to increase your subsidies.
Well, I'll take a friendly bet on it. I'm bullish in the midterms for a couple of reasons. Number one, because I think many of the things that were done this year will add to how the economy is acting, putting money back into people's pockets, and what's in it for them. I think that's really, you know, when you look at how people are voting in a midterm election, the economy is certainly going to be the number one, the most important, and the biggest issue that they're looking at.
And you're saying you feel good about the economy in 2026.
I think that the policies that have been put in place give us the best advantage possible. I can't imagine having had 4 more years of Biden's economic policies with the inflationary pressures and the overregulated state of our country. So yeah, I do. It takes time, obviously. So timing, you know, if it's a little bit delayed in that timing, then yeah, we might be in for a rough election. But if the timing goes as we think it will, then I think that there is a really good chance that voters take a look and say, you know what, I'm more secure, I'm safer, and the economy is better. And really, those are the issues that matter to them day to day.
And so you feel good. It's the friendly bet you want to make. You feel good about Republicans in the midterms.
I feel good about where we are. Yes, I do. And I know that we have good policy. Will, I think our challenge, like on things like healthcare, Democrats are talking about these subsidies. Let's break this down. What they're talking about affects less than 7 million people. I mean, we're talking about a very, very small amount, but they have translated that into a nationwide crisis that they created.
Right.
And they're basically saying, well, these subsidies are going to expire. Well, it's only for a small amount of people, but they've effectively been able to translate that and say, this is Republicans' fault. Well, it's not, because they're the ones that voted on this system in the first place, and they're the ones that put these in place. But messaging wise, it's emotional. They're playing on the fact that it's hard to afford. All of that is true, but it is their mess that they created. We are trying to unwind that.
Okay.
Republicans, we have to get better at communicating. I mean, there's just no question.
Well, I actually buy, so what you're selling, I buy. Like Obamacare itself, not as many Americans are on Obamacare as one might think, the way it's talked about. 7 million Americans is still 7 million Americans, and their issues are real issues. But I get it, what you're saying, like in terms of voting power, and you're looking to do something about those 7 million Americans. I'm not dismissing that as well. What about immigration? That's bigger. Now, I think that anyone listening today or at any point in the history of Will Cain Country or the Will Cain Show knows where I'm standing on this, but I also know that I can distinguish between what is right and what is popular. And I'm just curious. I don't know how popular immigration enforcement is. I don't know how popular it is with Latinos, and I do wonder about that as a bigger impact on midterms.
Well, I think you're right. And, in a place like Texas, I mean, obviously we bore the brunt of the invasion with millions and millions of people in a 4-year period pouring across, which is why I was able to effectively work with my colleagues to get a reimbursement to the tune of $11 to $12 billion for the state of Texas. So we're very proud of that. But what I wish, after I heard Joe Kent, the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, tell me 18,000 people still match the terror watch list, still at large in the United States. I think that, yes, if you're here illegally, you are committing a crime. True. I believe that. But what I wish that would now be the pivot is we've got too many people that match the terror watch list. We have too many people that have committed violent crimes like Lake and Riley type crimes. And all of our effort in the next year is going to be put towards finding them. I think that's a winning message. I think that is a message that President Trump has secured the border for 7 straight months. Not a single person, not one, has been let into this country by DHS personnel. Not a single person has been let into the country. So they have secured the border. Now let's transition to who are the violent criminals, who are the gang members, who are the terrorists. Those are the people we need to go find. And I think that's a winning message. And, oh, by the way, maybe the president should ask Congress to start looking at reform, common sense reform, so that the vetting process is 100% airtight. We know exactly who's coming to this country. They contribute to the economy. They help farmers and ranchers. They help the service industry. And they do so because they can assimilate here. I think that two-pronged approach would really benefit all of us.
And then, to the point of Joe Kent and what you're talking about, wasn't there also a plot that's been busted to do something in L.A. over the holidays? Like we had this stuff we're talking about, Europe and Australia. Yeah. There was a plot apparently just busted here at home in L.A.
Yeah, so you think about that, and if you really direct your effort towards those people, the ones that really want to perpetrate mass casualties and terrorist acts and are the violent criminals, I really think then that President Trump's brilliance of shutting down the border and making this the central issue of the last election, now it comes to fruition, and you go, all right, we're going to get rid of the bad actors, and we're going to start with them.
Right.
And there's lots of other avenues you can take and follow-on actions you can take after you do that.
Well, can I offer one more? So, okay, you got the southern border sealed. I'm going to offer 2 more. continue to reevaluate the legal immigration system to ensure that the right people are coming in for the right reasons and assimilation is at the top of the list in the right numbers that protect American jobs. So legal immigration has to be a focus. And I think as long as you're controlling who comes in the country, really you're not upsetting, hopefully, people who are already in the country and voting legally, meaning everyone should agree we should control who comes into this country, illegally or legally. The numbers on self-deportations are really high, and I believe that because of that, for the first time in a long time, the foreign-born population is going down in America because of self-deportation. Now, why are they self-deporting? Is it because they're afraid of ICE coming knocking on the door? Maybe, and then therefore this is working, although it might have a political cost. But there's another way to do this, and this is to the question of why they're self-deporting, and this ties everything we're talking together. Crack down on all of this fraud, like we're talking about with Obamacare. Make it so that an illegal immigrant in the United States doesn't get welfare, doesn't get health care, doesn't get all the things and the incentives and the shiny baubles that bring them to America. And actually what you'll see, hopefully, I'm not sure yet, is those self-deportation numbers continue to go high. Because you have to focus on the bad guys. But if we're being honest about illegal immigration, the conversation is bigger than just the bad guys.
You're absolutely right. And, we did that in the One Big Beautiful Bill. We said no more Medicaid for illegal aliens. That's 1.5 million to 2 million people. I mean, that's a lot of people, which will save us hundreds of billions of dollars. And, you just think about like being here legally, doing the right thing. There should be an incentive and a reward if somebody self-deports and then says, you know what, I love being in America. I want to be an American. What is that process? And I think that's an avenue to then, follow on with. But we do need to look at it. There doesn't need to be any benefits. Why is our military receiving lesser benefits, social benefits, than an illegal alien? I mean, that's a tragedy. So all of these things, whether it's fraud, waste, and abuse or the benefits, have to be brought back into check. And I got to give President Trump a lot of credit for it. I mean, these are his ideas. Now it's in the point of refining it and making it better so that you find people that want to come to this country legally to assimilate here and live underneath our law and order, not their previous countries, but our laws.
Yeah, the New York Times and CNN will tell you. They will tell you every night that it's not happening. Illegal immigrants are not getting Medicaid. Meanwhile, the governor of California is bragging about giving it to everybody. So I don't know how they reconcile this. He's like saying it. I'm proud of it. I believe in universal health care. We give it to everybody. CNN, New York Times. No, they're not. But it's awesome that he is. All right. August Pfluger, Congressman. Thank you so much for being with us here today. It's good to talk to you. Hope to see you in person in the not too far distant future.
Will, thanks for having me. Always enjoy watching your show and being on it. And God bless. Look forward to seeing you soon, too.
All right. Merry Christmas. There he goes, Congressman August Pfluger. By the way, on that note, in Australia, really quick, I just want to share this as well. These dudes shot for somewhere, the estimates are between 10 and 20 minutes. Can you imagine, by the way? That is an eternity. I was thinking, what would you do if you were on that beach or in that park? You're like, oh, I'd hide behind this or I'd do this. And can you imagine doing that for that long? I mean, that's not 10 minutes like that I just spent talking. It doesn't fly like that. That is a long, long time. And there are images. There's a lot of criticism of the Australian police freezing, doing nothing to allow this to go on for that long. And I would love to know this. What kind of policies in Australia played a role in licensing this guy to get a gun? If it's that controlled and that difficult in Australia, how did this guy get a license? Equity? I don't know, but I'm telling you, you want to place a friendly wager? Somebody looked at those licenses at some point, and I guarantee you the word equity came up at some point about who they give those licenses to in Australia. Let's take a quick break and then just quickly look at the fact that every year it happens, worst to first, first to worst in the NFL. We just didn't think it would happen with the Kansas City Chiefs. When we come back on Will Cain Country. Patrick Mahomes is done, and so too are the Kansas City Chiefs. It is Will Cain Country, streaming live at the Will Cain Country YouTube channel. Will Cain Facebook page. Please follow us at Spotify or on Apple. Tinfoil Pat, Two-A-Days Dan, with us here today. So, really quick, let's check in with the militia, where Michael Knight says, regardless of Rob Reiner's beliefs, his accomplishments on camera, and especially behind the camera, were impeccable. I like John Hughes films, but never heard about his political ideas. And then Jay Elliott says, tight gun laws, how'd that work out for Australia? To that, by the way, he received a rebuttal, some debate in the militia. First Round Buy says, well, the U.S. has 13.7 gun deaths per 100,000 people versus 0.9 for Australia, so quite a lot. I'll tell you this, the way those police reacted in Australia, I sure as hell wanted to have a gun if I were there. Did you guys see that civilian? That was so badass. That one guy went after it looked like the Sun, right? The Sun terrorist comes running off the bridge, and then he's tackled. Look at here. It's on your screen if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube. He's tackled. He's disarmed. The only mistake, and I mean, there but for the grace of God go out. He doesn't shoot the terrorist, and the terrorist goes on. Yeah. And you say, okay, well, we talked about this, Dan, earlier. Like, how would I react? I don't know how to react. The dude goes and gets a gun. he goes gets another of the apparently 6 guns that they had and resumes killing people.
I mean, inaction is also
awesome.
You know, I don't know. It's a tough call. I don't know if I could take a life in that moment.
Awesome reaction by that guy. I mean, it's a heroic and brave thing to do. Incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Wish he would have finished the job. But all right, boys. First to worst, worst to first. This is what it looks like. The Kansas City Chiefs are out. They are eliminated from the playoffs. And Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL on Sunday, and he's done. Not just for this year, but
brutal.
Probably into next year. Micah Parsons of the Green Bay Packers also looks like he tore his ACL. That's going to hurt the Packers in their run. I hope Jerry Jones isn't taking any victory lap on, well, see, we traded Micah. I haven't, because the Cowboys, it's over for the Cowboys. Not mathematically yet, but it's over. And by the way, my wife's like, are you in a bad mood? I'm like, yeah, I kind of am, because football's over. It's officially over for me. No fantasy football, no real college football, no pro football. It's all over. Barely December, and it's over for me. So, yeah, I was a little irritated yesterday.
What do you want to now? What do you want to hockey? Years. NBA?
No, I won't pick up. Yeah, I mean, I do watch the NBA. I do keep up with the Mavericks. But, I mean, I don't really turn on to that until after February.
The Stars are good.
I'd say March is when that ramps up. The Stars are good. And I'll go to games. Like, I'll go to a Mavs game and I'll go to a hockey game, I watch the standings and I read, but that doesn't mean I'm watching the games every night. I mean, hell, both sports, there's 82 of them. So come spring is when I start focusing on those a little more. I'm going to watch every college football playoff game, and I will watch the Citrus Bowl, Texas versus Michigan. But the passion's gone now. Now I watch passively, without a strong rooting interest in anything. This is how I do sports, right? I don't really gamble that much, so, you got to make it interesting or whatever. I don't really have that's how I do sports. I'm about passion.
You don't gamble at all, Will. Passion. You're in Texas. You do not gamble.
Yeah, I don't know. You cannot.
That's right.
You do not.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Way to save
That's
them.
right. Thank you, Patrick. But the Chiefs are not worst because the Raiders are below them, and the Raiders are not going to be caught at the bottom of that division. Raiders are going to have the first pick in the NFL draft, it looks like, between them and the Giants. But your worst to first candidate, this happens every year in the NFL. It's pretty fascinating. And I didn't see anybody saying this. Nobody. Chicago Bears.
Out of nowhere.
Chicago Bears leading their division ahead of the Lions and the Packers. I mean, if there's any debate in that division, it was between those two, right? And it's the Bears. First place.
You got great offensive weapons.
And somebody ought to just give. Do you give Coach of the Year to Ben Johnson, or do you give it to Mike Vrabel with the Patriots?
Or Liam Cohen.
I would say Bears just because how bad they've been.
Always here to remind us about Jacksonville.
You're saying like Liam Cohen's doing a bang-up job, and Baker Mayfield kind of fell off a little bit.
Calm down.
They're 10-4.
No, I mean, he's right, Dan.
They should be. They should be 12-2.
I'm kidding. I'm just mad at my Packers.
No, you're right. Liam Cohen belongs in the conversation. I mean, I've seen people saying, "What if the Bucs had kept him? You know, not let him go in Jacksonville? You wouldn't be seeing this collapse by the Buccaneers." But
He's doing some crazy stuff.
nobody saw the Chicago Bears coming.
I didn't see that coming.
And every time I think the Cowboys, every time I'm like, well, I like Brian Schottenheimer. He might be a coach. I'm like, yeah, but look what Ben Johnson did in Chicago. 1 year. Like, look what he did. It took, and by the way, I'm going to give Ben Johnson more credit than Liam Cohen, because if you were betting who's, as a quarterback, was going to take his team to 10 wins this early, would you have bet on Trevor Lawrence or Caleb Williams? And I think we all would have bet on Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just because I don't like Caleb Williams at all. Like, he paints his nails, you know, kind of, I don't know.
And sorry to Big Cat, but I think the Bears are going to find a way to screw it up.
Whoa, screw what up? The playoffs?
Yeah.
Because they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, they're one game up in the division on your Packers, but your Packers just lost Micah Parsons. So I don't.
Could be Ewing
they're
theory.
gonna
One of the best
catch
defenses
the
in the
vaunted
NFL, but it's fine.
Chicago Bears. Could be the Ewing theory. Micah Parsons is a great candidate for the Ewing theory, Patrick. The famous Bill Simmons theory: you lose your best player, and sometimes, mysteriously, you get better. It's odd. Go ahead, 2-a-days.
No, I was just going to say before we go, I was wondering if you want to talk about Heisman real quick at some point. How you found that?
Sure. Fernando Mendoza.
Yeah.
6'5".
I think he definitely deserved it.
Yeah, I think so too. Even as a Notre Dame fan, he needed it. See Diego Pavia at the club. His draft
Didn't
stock
like
just dropped. Dude's going in the 6th round. What are you doing, dog?
He looks like he's 5'9".
Diego Pavia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're polar opposites, by the way. Diego Pavia, everything is flash and swag and cool, and might not be anybody dorkier than Fernando Mendoza.
I know.
You know,
He's running for office
in the most endearing way, the most endearing dorkiness, and it makes you like him because you're like, that dude's just being him, and he's being 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, glory to God, glory to his teammates. I think he almost cries in every interview, and he's got his face scrunches up, his voice gets a little more high pitched, and he speed talks.
Just want to thank God.
I don't know. He's great.
I know, and the story with his mom was
And
really touching, and in his speech to his mom was really, really touching.
I wouldn't bet against him in the NFL. And I saw the stats. Like, it's not even close when you compare previous Heisman Trophy winners to what he's done in Indiana. It's way below what other guys did. He still deserved it because of what he's done with that team. But even with those stats, I wouldn't bet against him in the NFL. Like,
I don't know. I couldn't
I
figure
think
it
that's
out.
your guy. I think that's your 1-1.
Who's he like? Is he like a Daniel Jones?
From a personality perspective?
No, playing
or
perspective.
from a talent perspective?
Playing.
A guy that makes the right decisions, isn't flashy. I read this article this weekend about the best undrafted quarterbacks in NFL history. It's pretty fascinating. I mean, it's Tony Romo's on the list, obviously Kurt Warner. And you know what they all had in common? They were guys, almost all of them, who came from small colleges and under the radar. By the way, Warren Moon was on the list, which race played a role in Warren Moon. But Dave Craig, they all went to these small colleges. People dismissed them, and they always said it was about their arm strength, right? But they were guys who, in between the ears, did the right thing as a quarterback. And I'm telling you, like, that's what I want. Like, I don't need the guy
Josh
who
Allen.
has everything at the combine.
Yeah.
Well, he's different. He's different. But the side of the road is littered with those guys, the Jamarcus Russells, who have everything at the combine, right? But don't have it between the ears.
Yeah.
Well, it's true.
No, I know. I was just thinking about Jamarcus Russell. Forgot about him.
Yeah. Biggest bust ever?
Probably.
Biggest NFL quarterback bust?
Yeah.
Ever?
Well, it's probably up there.
Like
Yeah.
lost potential. Like the Greg Oden minus the injury of the NBA or of the NFL. Greg,
Yeah.
And Jimbo Fisher said that, he would have bet everything that he was going to be successful because of the way he behaved at LSU. It was like night and day in the NFL once he hit the NFL.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. So much so that I have trouble believing your coach, Jimbo Fisher. I also saw a video this weekend. Patrick says, remember when Jameis Winston was suspended one game at Florida State because he yelled in the student union that saying that was kind of hot for a minute,
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember what it was, but he came out in full pads anyway and warmed up, even though he's suspended. And Fisher was like, what are you doing? You're not in the game. We're not playing you. Get out of here. He just, you've got a history of some suspect character. Jimbo did the right thing there, but some
Sure.
suspect guys there.
No. Jameis is very passionate about playing. I mean, he shouldn't have even been suspended.
I can't, I'm looking at the phrase now. I definitely can't say
Can't
it.
say it. Yeah, I can't. I wasn't even going to try to say it on there.
Dan, you want to say it?
No. I forgot it was that one.
The
Yeah.
FH
It wasn't the crab legs.
No.
R
Don't even try. People go Google it for themselves.
Yeah. Just Google the letters.
Yeah.
But he warmed
Yes,
up
I
anyway.
remember
He was ready to take the field, coach.
Ready to go. You never know when you need
All
a
right.
backup.
Kansas City Chiefs are eliminated. Your Chicago Bears are your worst to first story in the NFL. That's going to do it for us today on Will Cain Country. We'll be back again tomorrow. Same time, same place, same channels. We'll see you again next time.